Merhabalar. Bir hafta aradan sonra yeniden birlikteyiz. Mafya lideri Sedat Peker'in ifşaatları aylardır ülke gündemini meşgul etmeyi sürdürüyorken bu hafta geçmişe ait itiraflara eski bakan Erdoğan Bayraktar'ın açıklamaları da eklendi.
Former Minister of Environment and Urbanization Erdoğan Bayraktar spoke regarding the December 17th and 25th corruption and bribery investigations and said, "Whatever I have in my file, both the tapes and the technical follow-up are correct and my phone calls are correct from A to Z." In the rest of the interview Bayraktar made with Altan Sancar from diken.com.tr, he said, "Those guilty should be punished, but at the point we're at now, God favored me and saved me."
The captain, my esteemed president, put me in a sack of thieves and threw me away. They threw me out. There was a cabinet change then, and I did not leave the ministry. We were a normal ministry. Then they threw us out of the ministry by putting us in a theft sack, the former minister said. A day later, he took a step back and made a statement that contradicted his words. This time, Bayraktar said, "Anyone who reads the tapes and the technical follow-up reports with an impartial eye can see how empty the file is and how cruelly they were prepared. Those who make politics over these files as if they are correct are doing just as much cruelty as those who prepared them," he said.
Describing his interview with Bayraktar, journalist Sancar said, "I was hoping that I could get words out of his mouth with pliers, but he said they threw me away." Regarding the correctness of the files, before I even asked him, Mr. Bayraktar started speaking. I recorded his voice, but then I sent the transcript of the news to Mr. Bayraktar in order to guarantee myself. He approved the news by telling me, "These are my words, you can publish them."
Yeni adli yıl, yargı bağımsızlığı, tarafsızlık, hukuk devleti gibi birçok sorunun gölgesinde Diyanet İşleri Başkanı'nın duasıyla açıldı. Cumhurbaşkanı Erdoğan yeni bir yargı paketi müjdesi verdi.
The 2021-2022 judicial year opened with the prayer of the Director of Religious Affairs Ali Erbaş. President of the Court of Cassation, Mehmet Akaca, attended the prayer wearing his robe, and President Erdoğan announced that a new judicial package would come to the parliament as soon as possible. Mr. Erdoğan also said that the work on the new constitution will be completed in the first months of the new year. Despite Erdoğan's "we reformed the judiciary" rhetoric and new reform promises, the problems in the judiciary were highlighted in the statements made by the bar associations.
Ankara Bar Association President Erdinç Hakan said, "We are not able to celebrate the new judicial year in our country, where the right to a fair trial is ignored. The defense is attempted to be excluded from the judicial system. Lawyers are systematically subjected to violence and killed in every environment where they practice their profession, and that they are prosecuted by being identified with their clients, with freedom of expression and communication remaining on paper only." In the statement made by Antalya Bar Association, it was stated that freedom of the press, freedom of expression, democracy, and freedoms were stifled in Turkey, while the Diyarbakır Bar Association said the fundamental and universal rules of law, such as the right to a fair trial, especially the independence of judiciary, are almost ignored.
İş insanı Osman Kavala cezaevinde 1400 günü geride bıraktı.
Businessman Osman Kavala, who was arrested in 2017 on charges of attempting to overthrow the government or prevent it from doing its duty, and attempting to overthrow the constitutional order by using force and violence, has been imprisoned in Silivri prison and deprived of his freedom for 1,400 days, despite the European Court of Human Rights decree for his release and the decisions of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe.
Kavala will stand trial once again on October 8. His lawyer, Deniz Tolga Aytöre, stated that practices that are unlawful and that disregard the independence of judiciary are now about the prosecution process, describing the events as a struggle against the law to keep Kavala under arrest. There is nothing left to discuss in the name of law in a trial process where the decrees of the European Convention of Human Rights and the European Court of Human Rights are persistently not executed, he said.
In the meantime, Istanbul 13th Assize Court once again denied Kavala''s lawyer's claims for his release and decided for Kavala to remain under arrest. The Human Rights Commission of the Council of Europe said that Kavala is the victim of a judicial system that is used to silence human rights defenders, lawyers and journalists, and that ignores the most fundamental principles of law at an unprecedented level, such as the presumption of innocence and the principle of legality in crime and punishment. The Human Rights Commission of the Council of Europe reacted to the decision by making a statement and said, "The unlawful arrest of Kavala is a sign of disrespect for human rights and the rule of law."
Gelelim haftanın diğer öne çıkan başlıklarından bizim seçtiklerimize.
In the lawsuit filed for the closure of People's Democratic Party, the Constitutional Court accepted the party's request for an additional time and allowed 30 days for the preparation of the defense statement.
It has been announced that the ruling bloc, the Justice and Development Party and the Nationalist Movement Party, which have been working on the electoral law and the political parties law for months, have agreed to lower the 10% electoral threshold. Mr. Erdogan stated, "The electoral threshold has been clarified as 7%. The Nationalist Movement Party also has a positive view on this." Afterwards, the junior partner of the government, Devlet Bahçeli, said, "The threshold decision of the People's Alliance has been confirmed as 7%.
The ruling bloc will continue to work on electoral law and the law on political parties, which will include changes in many issues, including transfers of parliament members, treasury aid to parties, cooperation between parties for alliances, as well as lowering of the electoral threshold until the opening of the parliament." According to the opposition, the regulation prepared is not a democratization step, rather a step taken in order to lose power and to save Nationalist Movement Party from remaining under the electoral threshold.
Historical traffic search records of Onur Gencer, who killed Deniz Poyraz during the attack against the Izmir Provincial Organization of the People's Democratic Party, were examined. Poyraz's lawyer said that in the HTS records, it was come to the conclusion that the attack was committed by an organizational structure.
The intensive care units of hospitals continue to be filled with COVID-19 patients who were not vaccinated, and the daily number of deaths reached 300. The Minister of Health said that if given situation continues, there will be at least 335,000 new cases and 4,000 new deaths within the next 2 weeks.
Turkey's extradition request for Sezgin Baran Korkmaz, who is currently arrested in Austria and has many arrest warrants for many crimes, including money laundering, in both Turkey and the United States of America, was accepted. The investigation into the US extradition request continues. The final decision on which country Korkmaz will be extradited to will be made by the Austrian Ministry of Justice.
Gelelim kendi gündemimize. Bu haftada davalar, soruşturmalar, yasaklar hiç eksik olmadı maalesef. İşte haftanın ifade özgürlüğü gelişmelerinden bizim seçtiklerimiz.
The Association to Access to a Right to a Fair Trial reported the problems faced by lawyers who are exposed to pressure while defending fundamental rights and freedoms and trying to practice their profession in Turkey. According to the data of the report prepared by Professor Atilla Güney, a total of 1,546 lawyers were prosecuted between 2016 and 2020. 665 lawyers were detained and 441 lawyers were sentenced to a total of 2,728 years of imprisonment. The heads of the Bar Association of 7 provinces were arrested. In the concluding part of the report, it was evaluated. Being a lawyer defending the rights of human rights defenders in Turkey results in law practice being the profession most at risk.
The Mardin Kızıltepe Chief Public Prosecutor's Office started an investigation against Cin News reporter Öznur Değer on the grounds of her posts and news about the murder of Dedeoğulları family members in Konya. The journalist news about the incident and her social media posts, which stated, "I am a Kurdish person as well. It's not a quarrel, it's a racist attack. It's not killing, it's homicide. Kurdish people are massacred in Konya. Racist attack against Kurdish women and children in Elmada. And how far will this racism go?" were made subject of the accusations against her.
An investigation was started against journalist Emre Orman on the charge of inciting the people to hatred and hostility or denigration for sharing the news of the racist attacks targeting immigrants in Altındağ on a social media account.
Journalist Derya Okatan was prosecuted on the grounds of news of the Afrin operation shared on the social media accounts of Aktif News Agency, of which she was the editor-in-chief at the time, in 2018. The first hearing of the journalist, who's been accused of successively making illegal organization propaganda, will be held at the Ankara 4th Assize Court on October 13th.
The Dicle Fırat Journalists Association shares its August report on rights of violations against journalists with the public. According to the data of the association, 5 journalists were detained, 8 faced investigations, and 3 were prosecuted in a month. In the concluded prosecutions, 2 journalists were sentenced to 10 years, 5 months, and 22 days in prison in total. In August, the Radio and Television Supreme Council, RTÜK, penalized 6 channels with 11 fines and blocked access to 211 news and 6 websites.
Mehmet Baki Tekin, an academic who completed his PhD at the State University of New York in the United States of America with the thesis "Who Rules Turkey Between 1980 and 2008: Capital Power and the Rise of Authoritarian Populism," was not accepted by the Inter-University Board on the grounds of hard style, provocative expression, and harsh criticism. Tekin applied to the Council of State against the board's decision.
The European Court of Human Rights convicted Turkey in the application of Imam Ücdar, who was working in Diyarbakır's Sur district and was sentenced to 6 months and 22 days of imprisonment in the lawsuit opened against him on the charge of making terrorist organization propaganda through a photo he shared on his social media account. The court ruled that Turkey violated Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights on the right to a fair trial and the Article 10 on the protection of freedom of expression of thought, and issued for Turkey to pay €6,736 of compensation to the imam. Ücdar's appeal against the local court decision and his individual application to the Constitutional Court had both been denied on the ground of statute of limitations.
The Bakırköy District Governorate announced a meeting and demonstration ban in the district covering September 2nd and 6th prior to the rally, which was planned to be held in Bakırköy Freedom Square on September 5th, where many non-governmental organizations and political parties took part in the organizing committee. In a written statement, the district governorate declared that the September 1st World Peace Day events would be only allowed on September 1st. The ECEHR governorate announced that as of September 1st, all meetings and demonstrations in the province were banned for 15 days due to the protection of public safety. The meeting and demonstration bans in Hakkari and Van were extended for 15 days more by the governorates. The Bitlis governorate has imposed a requirement of local administration permission for all actions and activities to be held throughout the province between August 30th and September 13th.
Istanbul Anatolian 8th Criminal Judicature of Peace issued the deletion of the news regarding the lawsuit filed against Iranian drug lord Naci Sharifi Zindashti and 20 other defendants, including police officers. The news involved the name of Gaffar Demir as well, who was director of the Istanbul Security Directorate's organized crime branch at the time.
A verdict of non-prosecution was issued in the investigation opened against the prosecutor Mehmet Bülbül due to injuring and threatening after he detained medical doctor Kemal Gökhan Günel over not examining him because he did not have an appointment at Osmaniye State Hospital. Furthermore, a lawsuit was filed against the doctor who was threatened with exile by the prosecutor on the charge of publicly insulting a public officer because of his duty. The indictment was accepted by the Osmaniye 7th Criminal Court of First Instance.
The Central Council of the Turkish Medical Association made a statement and said, "And the unlawful practices that are continuation of a state of emergency against our colleagues." The Turkish Medical Association stated that with the authority brought during the state of emergency, which was recently extended, the Ministry of Health launched investigations against health workers demanding their dismissal. It is unacceptable for our colleagues to be dismissed from public service based on allegations without any concrete criminal element, with unknown base obtained through unknown methods. the Turkish Medical Association said.
In the investigation started against 9 female detainees, including Democratic Society Congress co-chair Leyla Güven, who's imprisoned in Elazığ Women's Closed Prison on the grounds that they sang in Kurdish, a 1-month ban was issued against the women on their telephone communication and meetings.
The Council of State denied the 1 million Turkish liras of compensation decree to be paid to the family of Veysel Atılgan and his father İbrahim Atılgan, who died in ISIS attack at Ankara train station. In the lawsuit filed against the Ankara government, it was determined that there was a fault of service. However, the Council of State stated that a fault of service cannot be suggested for the administration and issued 30,000 Turkish liras of compensations to be paid to the family.
Böylece bir programın daha sonuna geliyoruz. Haftaya yeniden buluşmak dileğiyle. Hoşça kalın.